Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Should close the door. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Good morning from Sridham Mayapur. We're reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam every day. This is our program. Otherwise, we're going to get very depressed about all the crazy things going on in the world today. This is the real news, Srila Prabhupada would say. Nice to see Madhupati Prabhu here. Sorry we're a little late this morning. I had some technical problems. My computer blew up yesterday, maybe. And I'm using Krishna Kun's computer, so it's a little bit of a drama. So we're reading from the teachings of Lord Kapila Dev, Canto 3, Chapter 25, text number 30. We're going to continue from where we left off yesterday in the same verse. So this is Devahuti speaking to her son, Lord Kapila Dev. Tade tanme vijanihi yataham mandadir hare sukam budyeya durbodham yoshavavadanugrahat. My dear son Kapila, after all, I'm a woman. It's very difficult for me to understand the absolute truth because my intelligence is not very great. But if you will kindly explain it to me, even though I'm not very intelligent, I can understand it and thereby feel transcendental happiness. Prabhupada writes in his purport, knowledge of the absolute truth is not very easily understood by ordinary, less intelligent men. But if the spiritual master is kind enough to the disciple, however unintelligent the disciple may be, then, by the grace of the spiritual master, everything is revealed. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur therefore says, Yasya Prasadad, by the mercy of the spiritual master, the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavat Prasada is revealed. Devahuti requested her great son to be merciful toward her because she was a less intelligent woman, and also his mother. By the grace of Kapila Dev, it was quite possible for her to understand the absolute truth, even though the subject matter is very difficult for ordinary persons, especially women. Gauragraganyadana gotra govaruharam Gauranga gudatama gopyada kopa briksham Gopalagada ratidam yati singha gora Govinda deshi kavaram satatam namami Panchakopadarubhishcha kripa sindhubhyaeva patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we may feel a little uncomfortable to read this verse in purport where Devahuti Prabhupada saying, after all, I'm a woman, therefore I'm less intelligent. And this is a big topic, and it's also a sensitive topic because this is a cultural topic. And in the culture of Vedic culture, women had a supportive role. I wouldn't call it necessarily a subordinate role, but they had a supportive role because that's their nature, to be nourishing. But to simply dismiss all women as saying that they're less intelligent is a little foolish and premature because after all, Saraswati Devi is a goddess of learning and she's a woman. And Gayatri Devi is a woman. And Srimati Radharani is also the feminine aspect of the Lord. And in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that Gaudiya Vaishnava is actually the real Shaktas because we worship the feminine potency as being superior to the male potency. So it's not such a simplistic thing. I don't want to go anymore into that side of things, because it's not just because it's controversial, but because it will be understood differently by different persons. As we were reading yesterday from Srila Prabhupada's lecture that he gave on this verse, I'd like to read again some things from it. He says that in this verse, Devahuti shows us the process for understanding transcendental subject matters. It is not by challenge, but by submission. The entire bhakti process is a process of submission. And this is what we wanted to speak about today. It's actually significant also that Devahuti speaking as a woman, because women, feminine nature is a more submissive energy than the male energy. And women control men through their simplicity, through their humility. So yesterday we were reading some things about the importance of approaching a bona fide spiritual authority in the proper mood, and how Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, when they approached Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they told him that we're the greatest sinners. Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he's described, Matulyo nasti papatma naparari chakaschana parihare pilajjame kimbruvi purushottama. So, well, my dear Lord, my dear Purushottam, there matulyo nasti papatma. There's no papi, no sinful person, matulyo nasti, who's as sinful as I am. Naparari chakaschana. There's no offender as great as offender as myself. Parihare pilajjame kimbruvi purushottama. So I'm coming, he said, before you, but lajjame, I'm not even ashamed. I have no lajja, I have no shame to even admit what I've done. So this is the path by which we get mercy, when we have humility. Because as we were describing yesterday, pride blocks the ability to receive mercy. There's a nice story in this regard which illustrates the point of how we have to properly approach Sadhu Guru in a very humble mood. There was one wealthy, educated man who came to Radhakund at the end of his life, deciding that he would take to a life of bhajan, chanting Hare Krishna and worshipping the Lord. And he was looking for a spiritual master. And there was one sadhu there at Radhakund that everyone said, oh, he's a very elevated Vaishnav, and you should go to him. And so he approached that Vaishnav, but that Vaishnav could see that he's not ready. If I give something to him, it'll be like throwing seeds on hard ground. It's going to be useless because his ground is not fertile. And so he told him, no, go away. But again and again, that person approached that sadhu, Maharaj, please be merciful to me. Please accept me as your disciple. But this sadhu could see that he's proud. And because of that pride, he wouldn't be able to properly be a recipient of bhakti. And finally, he showed some mercy on him after some days. And he told him, he said, okay, I'll accept you as my disciple. And I'll give you mercy. But you have to first do something for me. And the man was very ecstatic. Yes, Maharaj, what can I do? He said, I'm going to give you 1 week. And I want you to go in 1 week, just find one personality, one creature, one living entity who is lower than you in all regards. And bring him to me. And if you do that, then I'll accept you as my disciple. And that man was very, very happy. This won't be very difficult. Actually, I have a PhD. I come from a very high-class family. I'm very wealthy. I have very good character. And the sadhu told him that that personality has to be lower than you in all regards. Yes, Maharaj, thank you. And so he went out, and the first person that he saw was a Bangi. If you want to get in a fight in India, call someone a Bangi. It's a bad word. Bangi It's not like a swear word or something in the West, but bhangi is someone who's a street cleaner. It means someone who cleans the drains, someone who cleans the stools and different things on the street, and they're considered to be very untouchable, very, very low class. And so this person, he saw this bhangi, and he thought, see, Krishna's very kind. Immediately I found someone who's lower than me in every regard. But then he stopped. And he looked and he thought, actually, he's not lower than me in every regard. He's a Radhakund Vasi. He's a Dham Vasi. He was born here at Radhakund. And moreover, although he's very humble, he doesn't have any wealth, he doesn't have any good education, but he's doing service to the Dham. And he's constantly covered with the dust of the holy Dham. I don't have that good quality. I wasn't born in the Dham, and I don't have the dust like this. So no, I can't find him either. And then he saw a rickshawala. Yes, this person. And the rickshawala was from Kolkata. He wasn't born in the Dham. But then he saw that actually this rickshawala, he's serving all the sadhus by giving them rides and things. I'm not serving all the sadhus. He's better than me in that regard. This might be harder than I thought. And so every day for 7 days he was going around trying to find someone, some creature, some living entity who was lower than him in every regard, but he couldn't find anyone. And finally the last day came and he was in great anxiety. Now this sadhu's not going to accept me. I can't get initiated. And that morning he went out to the field to answer the call of nature. He passed stool. And when he passed stool, he saw a worm crawl into his stools. And he thought, finally, I found some living entity who's lower than me in every regard. Now I can get initiated. But then he stopped. And he thought, actually, this worm has a good quality that I don't have. Because I eat nice Krishna prasadam, sacred food. And after I eat that nice Krishna prasadam, what happens to it? How do I convert that? It becomes something completely disgusting. But there's this worm, takes that disgusting thing, and he turns it into something very useful. It becomes useful soil. It becomes part of the Dham. So this worm, he's actually better than myself. And so he was defeated. And he went back to that sadhu and he said, Maharaj, I'm very sorry, I tried. I went everywhere I could. But I couldn't find any living entity that was actually lower than myself in all regards. And then that sadhu smiled. And he said, very good. Now I'll accept you as my disciple. Not just because he had some issue of pride, this sadhu, and was looking for someone to grovel at his feet to feel better about himself. But he understands that to develop Krishna bhakti, one has to be trinadapi sunichena turor eva sahisnana. If they don't have that mentality of giving all respect to others, if they don't have a humble frame of mind, then they won't be able to receive bhakti. So, such a very, very important principle. This pride keeps us from receiving mercy. In Jagannath Puri, we often do retreats at a place called Ishopanti Ashram. Very interesting place. It's started by the Catholics. And there's an interesting place right across the street from it. It's some property owned by the Bhagbazar Gaudiya Mutt. And the history of that property across the street from Ishopanti Ashram is an interesting history. The Gaudiya Mutt had decided that they wanted to help the lepers, and so they created a leper colony. But there was some quarrel after some time, because amongst the lepers, some of them were angry that, look, you're feeding me, that's nice, but I'm a Brahmin. I come from a Brahmin birth. I'm a Brahmin leper, and the person sitting next to me is a Sudra, or a Malecha leper. And I'm not going to accept food right next to this person. I'm not going to eat with them. If you want to do some charity with us, then you have to have a separate place for us. So the Gaudiya mission, then they started a separate ashram, which is now, it hasn't been used in 50 years. But that was originally what it was for Brahmin lepers. And so this abhiman is there. But this humility is something which is required in bhakti. As we read yesterday in Nectar of Devotion, Prabhupada described in chapter 3, anyone who has any desire or aspiration for satisfying his senses by becoming more and more important, either in the material sense or in the spiritual sense, cannot actually relish the really sweet taste of devotional service. As one secular person put it, humility is not exactly a growth industry. It's not like, humility is not exactly a growth industry. If you want to get a job, Anapayani decides that she wants to get a bigger job, and she's going to apply for the CEO of a big company in St. Petersburg or something. And she goes there and they ask her, so what is your qualification? And if she tells them, well, to be really honest with you, I'm completely useless. Actually, I'm the most useless person in the whole world. They probably won't give her the job. So humility is not much appreciated, as we spoke yesterday. But in spiritual circles, it's very much appreciated. In the Bible, this is spoken of quite a bit. In Matthew, in chapter 13 of the book of Matthew, it said that the virtue of a humble person is like a treasure hidden in a field. A virtuous person hides that. Similarly, in the book of Corinthians, Christ said, my power is fully shown in your weakness. When we exhibit our weakness, or as we were speaking yesterday, Vishad Yoga, when we consider ourselves to be the most fallen person. Therefore, St. Francis, in his teachings, the Christian saint whom Srila Prabhupada appreciated very much, who was a vegetarian and a very saintly person, he once said that, blessed is the servant who does not consider himself any better when he is praised and exalted by people than when he is considered worthless, simple, and looked down upon. For what a person is before God, that he is and no more. Woe to that religious person who's been placed in a high position by others and who doesn't want to come down by his own will. But blessed is that servant who's not placed in a high position by his own will and always desires to be under the feet of others. We quoted Francis a few classes ago. Very amazing personality. There's another Christian saint that comes to my mind also, who left her body, I think, at the age of 14 or 16, something like that. She was an Italian young girl. Her name was Gemma. And at a young age, she realized that God is everything, and she doesn't have anything without Him. And so she dedicated her life. She decided to become a nun. And her spiritual director, his name was Father Germanus, and he decided to test the humility of Gemma, because Gemma, she was attracted to things that would humble her, because she saw humility as a very important quality. And so one day, to test her, this Father Germanus, who was in charge of her, he told her, Gemma, why would Jesus want to dirty himself with a cesspit that is Gemma? Now, for those of you whose English is not your native language, like on a Anapayani, you probably don't know what a cesspit is. A cesspit is when you have a farm or something, a house in the countryside, and you make a toilet. You dig a pit underneath the toilet. That's a cesspit. So it's not a very nice place. So he told her, why would Jesus want to dirty himself with a cesspit like you? He told her. And when she heard that, I mean, if somebody said that to us, we'd probably go and punch him in the nose, right? We'd complain to the GBC, I'm being abused. My Gurudev called me a cesspit. a very, very bad thing. I've been psychologically traumatized. I need to go to a psychiatrist now. I have bad self-esteem because I was abused like this. But when she heard this little girl, a big smile came on her face, and she was full of joy because she found in those words the thing that she'd been looking for a long time, which was what? The best phrase that she could apply to herself. And so she started using that phrase and in her personal prayers and writings to Jesus. She would address herself, why, my dear Jesus, why do you want to dirty yourself with the cesspit that is Jema? And in this way, she enjoyed some great happiness. As Srila Prabhupada writes in his Nectar Devotion, we were saying that anyone who has any desire or aspiration to become more and more important, either in the material sense or in the spiritual sense, cannot actually relish the really sweet taste of devotional service. The really sweet taste comes when we humble ourselves. The really sweet taste comes by the mercy of the Vaishnavas. Srila Jiva Goswami has described in his Bhakti Sandarbha, Anucheta 209, that there's an intimate connection between Guru Bhakti and the holy name and pride. He says there in Anucheta 209, Guru Bhakti Sumilita Smaranat Sevyate Budai. That by devotion to Gurudev, one attains the Lord. And he says, Militopi na labhyeta jivair ahamika parai. But those persons who are proud, they don't get the Lord. He says, even though, milito means milan, means to attain. That even though they've gotten the Lord, they haven't gotten the Lord. It's a very startling thing. Someone may be chanting, someone may be initiated, someone may be a pujari for the deities. And we give all respect to such a person. Dikshasti chat pranati bishchibajantamisham. Rupa Goswami says, someone who has second initiation is worshipping the deity, like Madhupati Prabhu does in New Brajadam. We give all respect to such a devotee. But here Jiva Goswami is quoting this verse from Brahma Vaivarta Purana, which describes that someone may be in contact with the Lord, militapi, but na labhyate. They're not actually coming in contact with the Lord due to their pride. And in Anucheta 236, Jiva Goswami quotes another verse also from Brahma Vaivarta Purana. Ahankara navitanam keshavo nahi duraga. Ahankara yutanam hi madhye parvatarasaya. That the Lord is very easily attained, Lord Keshava. He's attained ahankara navitanam, for someone who renounces their ahankara, their pride, the sense of himself. He says, but for those persons who have this ahankara, it's like there's a great mountain range, madhya parvata rasaya, not just a mountain, but a mountain range between them and the Lord. So this humility, approaching the Lord in a humble way, is absolutely required. Again, in Anucheta 270, Jiva Goswami speaks about the importance of kirtan. He says that iyam cha kirtanakya bhaktir bhagavato drabya jati gunakriyabhir dina janaika visapara karuna maiti shruti paranari vishruti kalo cha dinatvam yata brahma vaivarte. He again quotes another verse in the Brahma Vaivarta Purana. But to introduce that verse, he says that devotion to the Lord, which he calls kirtanakya bhakti, in this age, that our bhakti means kirtan bhakti. He says this devotion to the Lord, it's unlimitedly merciful to devotees. It's available to devotees who are humble in pride, and they don't have this conception of wealth and prestigious birth, and they don't think themselves to be a very great person. That bhakti is available to them from the holy name. And he quotes Brahma-vivarta Purana. Ata kalo tapo yoga vidya yagyadika triyaha sangha bhavanti na krita kushalayrapi dehibi. Therefore, in Kali Yuga, activities such as penances and yoga, study of the Vedas and sacrifices cannot be properly performed, even by those who are highly competent. And Jiva Goswami comments, Atta eva kalo sabhavata eva tidenushu lokesh avibhuyatan anasana eva tat tad yuga gata maha sadanam sarvam eva phalam dadana sa kritatyati. Therefore, Sankirtan appearing amongst the people of Kali Yuga, amongst the people who have this attitude of humility, confers upon them everything that you may get in other yugas. We often hear this, that chanting gives everything from different yugas, but that chanting is only realized, only appreciated by persons who have humility and who can approach Sadhu Guru in a proper way. Therefore, there's a nice song I wanted to sing this morning. This is by a little-known Vaishnava. His name was Rasik Mohan Goswami. He was a great-grandson of Srila Srinivasacharya, and a very great scholar. And he wrote a number of Padyavali Kirtans. So I'm going to try to sing some of this morning in a nice raga for this time of day. Oh, Gauranga. Hare Krishna Bani. Hare Krishna Vaisheshika Prabhu, my humble pranams. Zoom is so much better. I would like to be able to see if Vaisheshika Prabhu has any reflections or comments for the pleasure of all the devotees. But it's a little hard here on Facebook. But still, if devotees have any comments, please. It's a little awkward how I'm sitting here with this harmonium and everything. We're trying to fit it in. So let's hold on. He teaches us that if you want mercy, if we want to advance in the path of bhakti, the first thing he says is Sakala Vaishnava Gosai. All the Vaishnavas are my Gosai. They're my worshipable God. Not just some of them, not just the second initiated devotees, or not just the ISKCON devotees, or not just the advanced devotees, but all the Vaishnavas. I give all respect to. And I pray to them, Dvaya Kora More, please be merciful to me. Dante Trinadhare, I am holding straw in my teeth. Holding straw in my teeth means I'm not giving any excuses. I'm not arguing back. I'm ready to accept chastisement. I'm not going to say, oh, it's not my fault. It's because of this person or that person. And he's presenting himself, Edina Pamare. I'm a very, very fallen, wretched person. So he may say then, what do you want? Shri Guru Charana Ayam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pada Padma Dhaya Mudikolo. He says that I want the lotus feet, Shri Guru, Charana Shri Krishna Chaitanya. I want the lotus feet of my Gurudev. I want the lotus feet of Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is why I'm coming to you and praying to you. Toma Bina Toma Sabara Karuna Bina Iha Praptina Visheshe Ayo Toma Sabara Karuna Bina, without the mercy of all the Vaishnavas, Iha Prapti Noi, I can't get the lotus feet of my Gurudev and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So when I say that I'm a very fallen person, I'm not just trying to be humble. Vishesha Yoga Mui Kahila Nishchay. I'm telling you, this is a fact. Why am I coming and approaching the devotees? Pancha Kulpotariyaha Karuna Sagara Itadarashami Varijayanta. He says that because the Vaishnavas are all wish-fulfilling trees and the oceans of mercy, Eta bharasamui dhari jayanta. I'm keeping that faith in my heart. Antara. I'm not just speaking about it externally. Oh, you're such a great person. You're so wonderful. You're this and that. But this is a conviction I have very deep in my heart. In other words, I'm not just trying to flatter everyone. Aparadhe Sima Amare Lake Dekao Mahima. He's a Gunalesha Nahimor. I don't have any, not even a slight fragrance of good qualities. Aparadhe Singha. I'm the last limit of offenses. So if you deliver me, then everybody will understand, oh, he's a real Vaishnav. You gave mercy to Madhavananda. Nama Sankirtana Ruchi Hara Prema Dana. Nama Sankirtana Ruchi Hara Prema So what I want is this Nam Sankirtana Ruchi Ada Prema Dana. I want love for God. I want this taste. But this taste won't come unless I develop humility. I won't be able to get the gift of my Gurudev unless I am ready to submit myself to that personality. We have a very difficult time with this in the West for several different reasons. In the West, we tend to think a lot about ourselves, and we have doubts in authority. In America, when I was growing up, one of the big sayings was question authority. We don't respect authority, and we have a bad experience with politicians, and even in our society, we have a bad experience sometimes with guru. But it doesn't change the principle of pranipat, pariprashna, and seva. These three things are required if we want to approach sadhu and if we want to actually get something from him. If we're just an external person and all that we want from guru is just a name and maybe a plaque on the wall that announces to everybody that I was officially initiated, and there's a photograph of Gurudev giving me some beads, and I can tell everybody I'm a member of ISKCON, I'm a life member, I'm a this or that. If that's all that we want, then that's not a very difficult thing to get. You can get that. But if we want this Nam Ruchi, Ara Prema Dana, which Radha Mohan Das is speaking about in this song, if we want this taste for the holy name, we have to submit ourselves. We have to be ready even to accept punishment, even punishment which may not be just, but if it's coming from Sadhu Guru, we accept it. In the Nimbarka Sampradaya, there was one sadhu, his name was Devadas, and he had a number of different disciples, and Devadas, he'd started to do Brajamandala Parikrama. And one of his disciples, his name was Katya Das, later became known as Katya Baba. And Devadas told his disciple Katya that I want you to help organize things for the Vaishnavas. And Katya was working so hard every day for his guru. And as a result of that, he was getting a lot of attention from Devadas and a lot of affection from Devadas. And what happened then was some of the other disciples became envious. And they started trying to find fault in Katya. It's a dangerous thing to push yourself forward. I remember my stepfather was he had some money and things, but he didn't want to dress in a proud way. He didn't want to show off his education because he said then people will become envious. I have a godbrother who was from England, and he had some money. He's living in India, and he would travel, and he told me that whenever he traveled, he would always use very old, beaten-up bags. And he would dress in old clothing so as not to attract attention. Because when you're on the train, if you're dressed in a very fancy way and you have a nice bag, then it attracts thieves. People come and they want to steal something from you. So he would behave like that. So we should be careful. We shouldn't be desirous of position and things for other devotees. If we only want that, then Gurudev may give us that. He may give us some big position. Just like Ravan worshipped Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu. The greatest Vaishnav, Lord Shiva, was worshipped by Ravan. Lord Shiva is the head of his own Sampradaya, the Rudra Sampradaya. He's a great Vaishnav. But what did he want from Lord Shiva? He just wanted a golden palace, a golden city in Lanka. He wanted beautiful women. He wanted nice food. He wanted material powers and wealth. He wanted those things, and he got those things. But he didn't get bhakti to Lord Ramachandra, who's the worshipable Ishtadev of Lord Shiva. So we have to be careful what we want from Guru. Katya Baba was a very sincere person, and he was serving his Guru Devadas, and Devadas was very affectionate to him, but that affection created some envy amongst some of the other disciples, and they started criticizing Katya Baba. And Devadas observed that, but he didn't say anything. One day he was sitting next to the fire. He's a sadhu. The sadhus, they carry sometimes a trident or some kind of pinchers, metal pinchers, like a bar. And he had that metal bar in the fire. And he was sitting around in the evening on the fire. And suddenly he called for Katya. You tell Katya to come here. And Katya came there. He's very tired. He'd been working very hard all day for his Gurudev. Yes, Gurudev, what is it? And Devadas then began to shout at him. You complete nonsense, idiot. Why you're late with this? And he took that iron bar out of the fire and he started beating him with it. Horrific punishment. And all the other disciples who were standing around, they see, I told you that this Katya was just a bogus fellow. He was actually a cheater and really bogus like this. And Katya just accepted this punishment from his Gurudev with great humility. Thank you, Gurudev. I deserve more. So a few years later, when Devadas was leaving his body, he again called for Katya. And Devadas began to cry. And he told Katya, I always loved you. I always appreciated you. But I saw that the devotees were becoming envious of you. And so I chastised you so that they would not be envious of you anymore. And even though you didn't do anything wrong, rather you're the best disciple that I have, you accepted that with humility. And because of that, you've won my heart. And now I'm going to leave my body soon. But after I leave this world, I want you to take over. You be the Acharya. You be Guru. And he proclaimed that in front of all the devotees. Because Katya Baba had won his heart by his humility. If we want to win the heart of the Vaishnavas, if we want to melt the heart of the Vaishnavas, it requires that we submit ourselves. As Srila Prabhupada was describing in his lecture on this verse today, the Devahuti, she's teaching us a very important thing. The process for understanding transcendental subject matters is not by challenge, but by submission. The entire bhakti process is a process of submission. It's very difficult for the Western mind to understand this, where there's so much competition and it's a rat race and everybody's trying to be the best and the topmost. And even sometimes, sadly, we bring this to devotional circles. But as Srila Prabhupada says in that Nectar Devotion, chapter 3, that as long as someone is trying to, has any desire to satisfy their senses by becoming more and more important, either in the material sense or in the spiritual sense, they can't actually relish the really sweet taste of devotional service. Prabhupada would give the example sometimes that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would give of a jar of honey. And the bee is a creature's on the outside of the jar. He's not tasting the honey. We have to open it up and go inside of it. And so sometimes we have devotees in the Krishna conscious movement, but they have some desire to satisfy their senses. Many of us do. To become more and more important and get respect. And we can't relish the really sweet taste of devotional service. We can't really understand what bhakti is all about. So Prabhupada says, in this verse, Devahuti shows us the process for understanding transcendental subject matters. It's not by challenge, but by submission. The entire bhakti process is a process of submission. And what I'm saying today won't be very popular with some people. It's not politically correct sometimes in our society, where many of us, as Srila Prabhupada once said, of course, some people say, Prabhupada said, what is the use of accepting a guru? I'll just read the book. And Prabhupada said, of course, they have a very bad experience. And so for devotees who've been hurt, who've had a bad experience, they found a guru that wasn't qualified, who was cheating them or this or that, this won't be a very popular thing to say. But just because some problems have been there, just because there have been mistakes in our society, doesn't change the transcendental principle of submission that's required for us to understand bhakti. And even if, I'll say something even more controversial, even if someone has abused us, even if we've been mistreated, like a friend of mine when he first joined, he had his life savings with him. He was traveling, hitchhiking around, trying to find the absolute truth. He had $2,000 in American money. That's all the money he had in the world. And when he joined, one senior devotee found out that he had this money and told him, you should donate this money to the book trust, to the BBT. It'll be good for you. And so my friend said, well, yeah, okay, sure. And he gave him all that money. And a few days later, that devotee went to India from America. And he came back with lots of nice silk dhotis and clothing and things. And my friend had some doubt. I don't know if this actually went to the BBT. Maybe this person cheated me. But later, that friend of mine, he told me he had the realization that although it may seem like I was cheated, I wasn't. Because Krishna is Bhavagrahi Janardhan, and he accepts the humble mood. He accepts the spirit in which I gave that. I wasn't cheated. But if that person took my money, he was cheated. And so this is a principle in bhakti. We shouldn't feel that, I've been cheated by submitting myself to someone who turned out to be something that he wasn't. No, Krishna always sees the spirit of that. And this process of submission is always required. Just because there's some cheaters or some bad persons doesn't change anything. Mm-hmm. So Madhupati Prabhu had a kind of question, comment. Hare Krishna Bani, nice to see you. And Dvaita Chandra Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Nice to see devotees, Subal Shah, Hare Krishna. Alex, Hare Krishna. So Madhupati Prabhu is asked, what is the difference between submission and surrender? Well, submission means that I submit myself. Both of these are English phrases. We could say that submission roughly translates in Sanskrit as pranipat, that you submit yourself, that I accept chastisement from someone. I submit myself to them. I accept guidance from this person. But surrender, we would perhaps use the word saranagati. And saranagati indicates complete giving everything and complete dependence upon that person. So that's the difference between submission and surrender.
Can I add something there?
Yeah, Krishna Kurum wants to make a comment. Please do.
Just a couple of days ago, I read something from Srila Prabhupada in which he defined surrender as being four things. Manmanabhava madbhakto madhyajimam namaskuru. This is how Srila Prabhupada defines surrender, that you just do these things. You think of Krishna, you offer obeisance to Krishna. Yes.
That's very, very good. That's real surrender. Okay. Anybody else have any reflections or comments? Please can type something in now. Otherwise, I'm going to give this to Anupayani Radha. And hope, Ashwin, thank you very much. I'm happy it cleared some doubts for you. Anupayani Radha, let's see if she has some comments. She usually has something nice to say.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this last comment, almost last comment, about that Krishna is Bhavagrahi Janardana, and maybe externally it looks like somebody was cheated in some way in the relationship with Guru or with some devotees even, but it's not, because if the mood was proper, Krishna accepts this, and this is a path of bhakti. You said it's everything about surrender, even if externally it looks like something is wrong. Thank you for this comment.
And that goes two ways also. If the guru, if the temple president is not a qualified person, but you're surrendering to him, if you're sincere, Krishna will see your sincerity and accept that. And on the other side, you may be the disciple, and I'm giving money to Gurudev, but if your mood is not sincere, and I'm just wanting to give the money so that the Gurudev will like me the best out of all the disciples, and I'll become famous, then Krishna's also not accepting that either. So there's a couple of questions online. Let's see. Gauranga Prabhu, this is Mani Gopal Prabhu, I believe, is saying how to keep up the spirit of surrender always in all situations of life. My Guru Maharaj used to say that we have to always be prepared. We have to be prepared to accept chastisement and put ourselves in a situation to accept chastisement. But chastisement doesn't just mean abuse, which is a foolish thing. I'm just going to accept abuse from anybody and everybody. But I want to find a Vaishnava that I have faith in. And I should be willing to accept abuse and chastisement from that person. And that person will help me to keep up that spirit of surrender. Also, we have to constantly hear and chant. If we stop our chanting, because I'm working so hard, I'm so surrendered, I don't have time for chanting, then our heart won't remain pure, or maybe it won't be pure at all. And then other desires will come in, and we won't have a desire to surrender. Another thing is that we have to regularly hear and chant. We have to hear from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam and hear from devotees and have association and examples of devotees who are surrendered. And if we keep ourselves in that situation, then we'll be able to keep that spirit of surrender. Otherwise, we see many devotees, they lose that spirit of surrender after some time if we don't keep up our proper hearing and chanting and associating. Alex has written, the principle of submission is always at first place, but what about cheating? How to deal with that? It's really hard to digest inside. Well, who's really cheated? That's a question. If someone took my money when I joined, have I really been cheated? Or did he get cheated? Actually, he got cheated. The person who took the money, not me, because I gave it with sincerity. But cheating, in one sense, is a relative conception. If I have the conception, if I'm feeling sorry for myself, oh, I've been cheated, then that's another kind of problem. How do I deal with that? How do I deal with my mentality? Therefore, I have to see who's really the cause of things. I'm so tired of hearing everybody talking about that the government is cheating everybody, or it's the pharmaceutical industries who are doing this thing. Krishna is doing everything behind us. And that's all that I want to see with this COVID virus problem. I just want to see Krishna. And I want to take shelter of the holy name, and Krishna Katha is the only solution. And it doesn't mean that maybe there's not a conspiracy going on. It doesn't mean that we should be foolish. But why be absorbed in that? Gorkishore Das Babaji once in Navadvip I was walking through the city, through the town, and some small boys started throwing stones at him. And he got angry, and he stopped, turned around, and shook his fingers, started yelling. And he said, Krishna, if you don't stop this right now, I'm going to tell your mother. He didn't yell at the boys. He didn't feel sorry for himself. He didn't go to try to find the parents of the boys. Rather, he saw Krishna behind everything. So really, if we want to stop being cheated, we have to see Krishna everywhere. And we have to learn to digest, as you're pointing out, on the inside. Bonnie's making a comment. It's wonderful that devotees are never cheated by Krishna. But if they're aware that someone's cheating an authority, it seems right that they should not be allowed to continue. Yes, we have an obligation in our society if we see that someone in the guise of a preacher is abusing, taking money from people, someone is abusing helpless people, women or children or something, we have an obligation to not allow that to continue. That's a service for Srila Prabhupada. And Bonnie points out, nice comment, thank you. If you know that someone is insincere and you surrender to them, I can't imagine that Krishna is pleased with that. Then you're complete nonsense. Why in the hell would you surrender to someone that you know is insincere? It means you're not sincere. If you know that, if you don't know that, then that's the Krishna will accept that. But if you purposely surrender to someone knowing that they're not sincere, then you're not sincere. Krishna's never going to be pleased with that. Madhupati Prabhu has made a comment. 19 years ago, when I quit Ernst & Young, he was a executive in the company there, I was cheated by a significant amount. It took me the better part of those 19 years to understand that by karma, that money was not destined to me. Therefore, I should not worry about how it was taken away from me. Thank you, my dear friend Madhupati Prabhu. I pray that you and all of us can leave this world not seeing, not being angry why I was cheated by my wife, by my husband, by my friend, by the temple president, by this company. I didn't get the money that I was due, or this or that. I pray that we won't leave this world angry with that, but we can leave this world and just see that I get whatever I deserve. And Krishna will take care. Let me take shelter of hearing and chanting. And for me right now, I look around in the world today and I see this is a message that Krishna's giving us over and over again. Take shelter of the holy name, take shelter of Krishna Katha. There's nothing else, there's no other solution. So we're going to go ahead and stop there, and we're a little bit late. I'm trying to finish on time. Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vanchakalpadurubhischa, Kripa Sindhubhyevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So we'll be here again tomorrow if anyone wants to take part again at the same time. Thank you all very much.